Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 6 of social work practice with families. I can't believe we just really have 2 weeks left. You guys have been simply amazing to work with and to really support on your educational journey. You guys have a wealth of knowledge, but also experience that you bring personal and professional to the field. So I am just blown away by reading a lot of your work and appreciate the opportunity to get to know you guys a little deeper. So great. So let's dive into this week's assignments. Some of the simple assignments I will just dance over a little bit because I think they're pretty straightforward, and just leave a little bit more time for the bigger assignments to go into more detail. So if there is things that you have questions about, please feel free to reach out. Okay. So the first thing we're going to review is the narrative family therapy video analysis. So what you're going to do, similar to previous assignments, is after watching the video facilitated by Steve with the family, you're going to respond to all of the following questions for your initial post. So what you want to do, what's really helpful for me when you have a series of questions to answer in your discussion post, is to really just copy and paste and answer it below. Because it is easier for me to just make sure that you have answered each question. So you can just copy this and respond underneath. I would encourage you to give some meat and potatoes to it. So what are your reactions to the therapist's method for helping Ollie to spell out his preferred identity about himself versus the story that was beginning to circulate about who he is? Can you think of a past or present client for whom this reauthoring of one's preferred story might be helpful? And I think what you'll find is that many of us like to have power and control over our stories, because then that allows us to have, any biases removed, or, stories that we wouldn't be favorable of sharing and defining who we are. So, I think you'll find that in pretty much anyone that you may kind of come into interaction with, especially if there's a history of trauma, because what you find in a lot of trauma work is that most people really just want a sense of power back that was maybe stolen from them in different ways through a traumatic event, especially in their childhood. So just answer these questions straightforward during your initial post to this Thursday, and you want to respond to at least one classmate by Sunday, and just ask, and talk about what have you learned from your classmates' posts and what can you add to their learning. So have fun with that. It's always a really good video to watch and refer back to. So that's your first assignment. Your next assignment is focus brief therapy video analysis. So this one is very similar to your other discussion post, but this one you do not have to have a follow-up post due this Sunday. So you're going to respond very similar, copy and paste each bullet and respond to the questions. And the miracle question, and I don't want to ruin it for you guys, it's typically a question where you get people to step outside of the problem and get to see and dream beyond what they've been exposed to, right? So I've been working with a couple, and one of the miracle questions that I recently asked was, if you could wake up tomorrow and paint a vision of what your marriage looks like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, what would that look like? And usually the miracle question gets people really stirred up and really excited, and kind of helps them see beyond things. And then those things that they see or desire in the miracle question, we kind of see that sometimes they're doing those things, sometimes they're not, and how you can get there. And then other times, going back to what's a possible limitation, I think sometimes I've used the I've used the miracle question with teenagers, and the limitation sometimes could be if they're just not in the greatest mood today, is nothing. I can't see beyond that. Like, I can't answer your question, especially if they're depressed or just not feeling up to processing that day. So, I know that's a personal limitation that I have, but I wanted to give you guys some ideas to get the wheels going for this assignment. But that's really just what the miracle question is. This, hypothetically speaking, or if you woke up the next day and this and this and this was granted to you, what would you do, right? And so that's a really great question for people who are really struggling with a multitude of problems, to begin to see their strengths, to begin to see past things that they are going through. So that is your second discussion post. And then you have your weekly family therapy theory grid. It's due this Sunday, so I know you guys are quite familiar. But this is actually one of my favorite, and this is the narrative therapy. This is actually probably one of my favorite therapies and interventions because it's the one that I'm most familiar with and can use easily and authentically in people that I work with in private practice, when I work with my alternative schools. And what you find is that you get people to share their side of things, their perspective, which really is empowering when you're working with a family because, the parents may see it one way, the child may see it another, but it doesn't mean that either one of their perceptions are wrong. It's just a different way of viewing things. But to allow, children in particular whose voices are always typically silenced in a lot of decision-making process can be really empowering. So I'm going to share a narrative therapy project that I did last year with my alternative school students. And we utilized the curriculum called Stories, created by Dr. Megan Corrado, and it was amazing because it was this idea of telling your story, beginning, with your trauma narrative, using flashcards, building all the way up to an artistic art piece and a story that you can go home with. And so what we decided to do is create a book of trauma narratives. So I will share that with you guys. Everything is blackened out around names, so I think I'll post that later this week, just to give you a deeper dive into how you can use narrative therapy and use these different therapy interventions to have fun in the healing process with clients, because it can be a lot of work to work with people around issues all the time and pick up possible vicarious trauma. So that's what you're going to focus on, your narrative therapy this week. If you have questions or get stuck about that, let me know. Okay, so that one's pretty straightforward. And then you have your integrative case paper and genograms. So what you're going to do is and I'm going to go into the directions a little bit more here, you're going to design your paper based on the genogram that you created in week 5, where in your integrative case genogram and assessment. This assignment allows you to envision more precisely how your assessment of what is causing the problems in a client's family lead to your sectional part or particular family model for intervention. In addition, you will gain a better understanding of how widening the lens to include an assessment of family dynamics open up more possible solutions to the problems that bring the family to a healthier place, right? And so what you're going to do is please make sure you have your headings proper, and you're going to use your hypotheses, your social cultural factors, family life cycle stage, family strengths. Everything that is highlighted in bold is going to serve as your headings. So what you want to do is make sure that your paper is 5 to 7 double-spaced pages, not including the title page or the reference page. And you want to make sure that you also have the genogram attached. So it's going to be an updated one. I know I've given you guys a lot of feedback on your genograms, but one thing that I would really focus on is making sure that you have your symbols that explain the different relationships and attachments that the family has to one another, their occupations, their salaries, any history of mental health or substance abuse, because those are really key things, or possible traumas that are known of. Those are things that really help us dive deep into doing some of this work. So that's what you're going to do for this assignment. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, where a lot of the meat and potatoes is around family intervention. So you're going to describe specific interventions you could use with the family that flow directly from the concepts, principles, and language of 2 or more family practice theories covered in class. So the great thing is, remember that beautiful family theory grid that we just talked about? You guys have done the legwork. So all you have to do is go back and look in that intervention box and just figure out a couple different interventions, at least two, from each of the theories talked about so far, and then begin to apply them to the work that you're going to do with this family. And to make sure you use your citations and your references. Will definitely add up pretty quickly. So, I think that's the biggest one that you want to hone in on. If you're stuck or just have some questions about, I know what the problem is, how do I take the problem and get to the solution utilizing some of these interventions, please feel free to reach out this week. I can certainly support you on that, okay? And so your genogram is just, you're just going to tweak it based on what you have thus far. I'm going to try to get those to you by Wednesday so that you can use any feedback to revamp what you have, okay? Great, so that's that. And lastly but not least is your self-care activity, just the video here. So just hoping that you guys are able to take care of yourselves and listen to your minds and bodies when you need breaks and days off. And I know it can be tough to balance it all, but you're doing amazing work. It's been a pleasure to continue to work with you guys, and I hope you have a great week, and I will be in touch. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.